Welcome to Drive Spark. I'm Vedant Jouhari, and what I have right in front of me is the all-new Royal Enfield Himalayan 450.
I'm superhuman. Put that world on top of my shoulders. Anytime of day I go to war like a soldier. Taking that risk and nobody is bolder. Time keeps ticking, we're all getting older. I'ma work it, I'ma make it. Like a boss bringing home that bacon. Got these kids trying to test my patience. Nothing gonna shake me, I'm not breaking.
Now, let's take a look at this bike closer. Starting off with the front end of the motorcycle, we have this really nice and aggressive, dirt style front mudguard that comes well above the front wheel, and below that we have another mudguard over here that spans all the way down till here for when you're off-roading, to stop any rubble, to stop any debris from shooting out into the radiator and damaging it. So the front wheel that we have here is a tubed spoked wheel tire that is 21 inches, and we have USD forks who hit a good fork cover over here. So the front forks that we have are 43mm Showa USD forks. Now apart from that, we have this really nice circular headlight with the Royal Enfield badging in the center, and it's almost like a split style design. On top is your low beam and below is your high beam. Also on each corner of the headlamp, arc lamps is honestly a really nice feature that Royal Enfield has incorporated into this motorcycle. Also on top of that, we have a small windscreen with an option, an additional option to increase the size as well. Now we have these tank protectors over here with a really nice Royal Enfield badging on it. Looking at the design of the tank, it's a really nice design as compared to the old Himalayan, which is very sleek. Here we have a little bigger tank. It flares out in the front and then comes in sleek towards the center for adequate knee placement and for adequate seating position. Now this tank can hold up to 17 liters of fuel. We also have the really nice looking Himalayan badging over here along this yellow stripe. Now coming to the foot pegs. The foot pegs that we have some really good grip on them, and it has this sort of beading on it that provides extra grip for when you're riding with your boots so that it doesn't slip off. However, on this motorcycle, the foot pegs aren't connected to the main frame, so you don't get as much feedback as you do when you're riding off-road on your legs than you do on your hands. Now looking at the exhaust, we have this really nice upswept exhaust, and the exhaust note is really nice. That we will listen to in some time. At the rear, we have a single monoshock that is honestly so much better design than the older Himalayan. Is an adjustable suspension, so you can make it a little more stiffer or a little more softer depending on your preference and your convenience. When you're going over a speed breaker, when you're going over a bump really, not really fast but at speeds, in the older Himalayan there was a lot of kickback from the end. But now the dampness of the rear suspension, the compression of the rear suspension has all gone through R&D to avoid that. And now when you hit a bump or hit a speed breaker at speed, you don't feel the kickback, you don't feel yourself getting thrown into the front. You do feel planted on the motorcycle. Now coming to the rear end of the motorcycle, we have this, again, a nice Royal Enfield badge, the yellow against the black, which creates a really nice contrast. At the rear end of the motorcycle, we have this top rack over here, which you can put a top box or something up to 7 kgs, but this one that we have right now is a 5 kg setup. And something really unique on this is that if you look at the rear end, you really don't see any brake lights on this. Now why is that? That would be a little unsafe, you think. But the indicators that we have here have integrated brake lights. So around the edges is where your brake lights are, and at the center is where your indicator flashes. In my opinion, I feel it looks really nice. Now coming to the rear wheel, again a tube tire, spoked wheel, and this is 17 inches. The 21-inch front wheel and the 17-inch rear wheel is perfect for off-roading and for an ADV bike on the road, as it gives you proper grip, proper feel of the motorcycle. So now coming to the frame. It's a dual tubular trellis frame with a rear subframe, and so you could pretty much say it's a split chassis. The engine of this motorcycle, the first time in Royal Enfield's history that they have included liquid cooled engine and a DOHC setup. Now this engine is known as the Sherpa, and it is a 451cc engine that produces 40 bhp, 39.47 to be exact, and 40 Newton meters of torque. So now this engine gives you that extra torque, that extra power to actually push the bike no matter what your situation is. and you can ride it on low revs or high revs and you don't feel strain from the engine, and that is something really nice. I rode the bike for more than 600 kilometers from Pune to Goa with the stop in Ganpati Phule, and taking it in some off-road sections, riding it on the beach, riding it on different sorts of terrain, on rocks, on mud, on tarmac, on broken tarmac, everywhere. There was no strain from the engine. You did feel the rear wheel want to step out, but you really didn't feel the bike struggle. No matter what you threw at it, it could easily handle it. So now on our display, on our dash, it's a 4-inch dash. And here we have a host of settings, such as you can control the screen, you can make it analog or digital, you can control a dark view or a light view, and you get 4 riding modes on this. So you get performance with ABS on, performance with the rear ABS off, eco with the ABS on, and eco with the rear ABS off. I 99% of the time rode it with the performance on rear ABS off, and it was a thrill. I mean, with the rear ABS on, you do feel the rear brake struggle a bit as you can't press it as hard, and you do feel the brake wanting to push back. But with the ABS off, you can really press the brake, press the front brakes, and when you're off-roading, you really feel the bike want to stop when you're pressing the brakes. Now coming to the ground clearance of this motorcycle, 230 mm, and the seat height is 825 mm. And now you have a stock option with the seat to increase the seat height to 840 mm. I was riding this bike on 840 mm as I'm 6'1" and I find it more comfortable with a little higher seat. Coming to the seating position of this motorcycle, as you can see, so now we are at the lowest seat height, which is 825 mm, and I can comfortably place my feet flat. However, for someone who's around 5'2" or 5'3", this seat height could also be a little too high for them, and they'll be extreme on their toes to get the balance, or they would have to move over to one side of the bike to actually plant their feet and get a good grip on the ground for this motorcycle. As I mentioned, for the tank design, it's flared in the front and comes narrow in the center, and that is because when you're sitting, you have place to actually not rest your legs, but keep it planted on the tank. And even when you're standing up and riding, you have some grip over here. But as I said, as the foot pegs aren't connected to the frame, you don't feel as much feedback on the feet as you do on the handlebars. So now coming to the cons of this motorcycle. On our dash, we have navigation, but we need to download the Royal Enfield app for that. And that app drains the battery. And why is that? So basically, you need to keep your phone on. You have to keep it unlocked throughout to get the actual route on your dash. And if you lock your phone, you'll only get the navigation symbols. This is my experience. When I left from Pune, I had 100% charge on my phone. We rode for around 80 to 90 kilometers, and when we made our first stop, my phone was down to 12% of battery. So my phone doesn't give the best battery life, but still, draining it from 100 to 12% in just 90 kilometers is really not good. And on top of that, my phone started heating up, so it could reduce the life of your phone. So now coming to another con of this, headlights. At night when you're riding, the throw of the headlight isn't strong at all. So you do have some vision, but the road is not illuminated like how you'd want it to be. But if you do put it on full beam, you do get better lighting, but that's going to affect the oncoming traffic. So that is something else that Royal Enfield can look into to actually work on this motorcycle. Now coming to the braking of this, the front brake has a really good bite. However, the rear brake with the rear ABS on is not strong. When you switch the rear ABS off, you do feel the bike want to stop with the rear brakes. Now with it on, it doesn't feel as strong, and you don't feel the bike really wanting to come to a halt. And when you press it hard, you do feel the rear brake pushing back up on your feet as the ABS is kicking in. So now coming to the rear suspension. If you have someone heavier sitting at the rear of the motorcycle, you do feel it drop. Now that you can adjust with your adjustable rear suspension. However, with the stock settings, it is a little soft. But if you're riding single, it feels extremely comfortable. So now someone with a bigger rear end would feel uncomfortable on the rear seat, as it's narrower and it's not as wide and accommodating as the front seat is. After the rear seat, we'll come to the top rack. The top rack with the stock setting is only the maximum load that you can put on this is only 5 kgs. So for example, if you have a 30-litre bag or even a 20-litre bag for that matter, that's still around 20 to 30 kgs of weight. And with a 5 kg load, it's really not going to take that much weight. So you will have to opt for an additional piece from Royal Enfield or from another source where you can actually fit something heavier onto this. So here's another con on the motorcycle. So when you're constantly riding on the highway or when you're constantly in motion, you don't feel the heat coming from the engine as there's airflow coming in and it keeps the engine at the ideal temperature. However, when you're riding in the city and you find yourself stuck in jam-packed traffic, that's where you feel the heat coming out. So when you're sitting on the bike, your position in traffic is ideally like this, as you have your foot on the rear brake for when you need it. So when your leg is like this, you do feel the heat radiate out of the engine and you do feel your leg getting warm. That may bring some discomfort to you, and the heat mainly radiates out of the right side of the engine. So you feel it a lot on your right leg. However, your left leg, as it will be down or even if it's up on the foot peg, you don't feel it as much. So that is another thing. The cooling system may have to be improved to get rid of this small issue. So now the next con of this, to control what's on your dash while you're riding. When you're riding, almost everything is locked on the dash, right from your riding modes to selecting the display on your main screen. However, you can control your trip meter, your fuel economy, range to 0, all of that is controllable, but everything else is locked. So to control all of that, you will have to come to a standstill to the side of the road and control it. So for most of it, it is good for the safety. Like, you wouldn't want to be riding on the road and be seeing how your appearance on the dash looks and all of that. But for riding modes, you will want to change it on the fly, as you might get a sudden off-road section and to control the bike. Now, to change the riding mode, you will have to stop to the side, come to a standstill of the motorcycle, and in some situations, you'll have to do a full ignition cycle. You'll have to switch off the motorcycle with the key and switch it back on to actually change the riding mode, as it gets locked if you try changing it on the fly. So now coming to the final con of this motorcycle. As it's an ADV, as it's an off-roader, you will expect it to come with spoked wheels and tubeless tires. However, this motorcycle comes with spoked wheels and a tube tire. So as it's a tube tire, when you're riding off-road, if you get a flat, you can't do anything about it. Your tube is damaged and your tire is damaged. So you'll have to stop the motorcycle until you get a replacement. So that is also something that can be looked into by Royal Enfield. All in all, this was a Royal Enfield Himalayan and it was a thrill to ride. Excluding the cons, it was amazing. I had a blast on it, 600 plus kilometers riding it on highways, through ghats, through off-road sections, on the beach, everywhere. It was unreal fun. I loved it, and Royal Enfield has done a brilliant job as compared to the previous Himalayan to the newer Himalayan. As I mentioned earlier in the video, let's listen to the exhaust note of this motorcycle. So as you could hear, it had a nice grunt to it, and that is the whole 450cc coming into play and shooting out from the exhaust. Now, in my opinion, it sounds really nice, especially for a single cylinder off-roader. Let's talk about the color options on this motorcycle. You get this available in 4 color options. One, as you can see here, is the black and yellow, which is the top end variant. Apart from this color, you get 3 other options. One is the plain white with some graphics on the tank. Then you get a grey and blue color option and a grey and pink color option. In my opinion, the black and yellow is honestly the best looking Himalayan out there. Now, the price point of this. Up until December 31st, you can avail the motorcycle at rupees 2.69 lakhs. And it ranges from 2.69 lakhs to 2.84 lakhs, and both these prices are ex-showroom. So let us know in the comment section down below what do you think of the new Royal Enfield Himalayan 450, and tell us if you would want to ride this bike. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. My name is Vedant Jouhari, signing out.